Welcome, everyone. We want to talk about something that's very, very real in the world today. Here's the question for this segment. What if the person you trust never existed? When people you trust turn out to be a projection of your own mind. This is nothing new to you if you've lived enough decades on this earth. But I'm going to say it like this: the collapse of the illusion. There's a hard truth most people never want to face. Much of the pain we feel in relationships does not come from what people actually do. It comes from what we imagine they were. Tell me I'm lying. We build entire emotional worlds around people who never agreed to play the roles we assign them. We see a moment of kindness and assume a particular character. We see confidence and assume loyalty. We see attention and assume love. But what if we were never reacting to the real person at all? Have you ever gone through that? This is where most suffering begins. Not in betrayal itself, but in the collapse of the story we told ourselves about this person. And when that story breaks, it feels like reality is attacking us. But in truth, reality is just removing the mask we placed on them. The human mind hates uncertainty, so it fills the gaps. We meet someone and don't know who they fully are yet. Instead of waiting, the mind completes the picture. It builds personality traits, intentions, and emotional meaning that were never confirmed. One moment of care becomes they are a caring person. One deep conversation becomes they understand me. One attraction becomes this is someone safe. But none of that is proven. It is assumed. And assumptions become emotional contracts we never told the other person they signed. So when they act outside of that imagined identity, we feel betrayed. But what actually broke was not them. It was our own projection of them. When illusion collapses, it does not feel neutral. It feels like loss, because the emotional attachment was built to the fantasy version of the person, not the real one. That's why people say things like, I don't understand how they changed. But in many cases, they did not change. What changed is your ability to ignore what was always there. Small signs were present all along. The inconsistency, the distance when you needed more, the shifting energy when convenience changed, the respect that came and went depending on your value in their life. But the mind protected the fantasy until it couldn't anymore. And when that protection fails, reality feels brutal. Most people are not consciously pretending. They're performing identities they believe are real. We all carry different versions of ourselves depending on the environment, on the pressure, and the desire. There's the version we show in comfort, the version we show in stress, and the version we show when we want something. Over time, some people lose track of the difference. The mask becomes their identity. This is why someone can appear loving in one moment and cold in another without seeing contradiction in themselves. Their behavior shifts based on emotional need, not consistent character. And if you're only looking at the best moments, you will miss the full pattern. See, words are easy. Patterns are honest. Real understanding of people does not come from what they say once. It comes from what they repeat over time. Who shows up only when they need something? Who becomes distant when you need support? What only values you when you are useful, available, or agreeable? At first, these patterns are easy to excuse. We call it stress, timing, personality, or misunderstanding. Over time, excuses become blindness. And blindness is what keeps people stuck in cycles of emotional confusion. Human interaction is not always as pure as we'd like to believe. There are hidden exchanges happening beneath the surface. Approval is traded for belonging. Attention is traded for validation. Control disguised as care. Jealousy disguised as concern. Even silence can be a strategy. Many relationships are built on unspoken agreements like, I will treat you well as long as you keep me emotionally comfortable. The moment that agreement breaks, behavior changes. Not because truth suddenly appeared, but because the arrangement was exposed. Once you begin to see patterns clearly, you cannot unsee them. You start noticing emotional manipulation where you once saw passion. You start noticing inconsistency where you once saw complexity. You start noticing performance where you once saw personality. This awareness creates emotional distance, even when physical closeness remains. Conversations feel different. Compliments feel calculated. Affection feels conditional. And suddenly, you're no longer inside the illusion. You're observing it. That shift changes everything. The hardest truth is not just about others, it's about us. The same patterns we notice in people exist within ourselves. The need for validation, the urge to control outcomes, the discomfort with rejection, the temptation to adjust truth depending on what benefits us. Most people do not face this directly. They rationalize it instead. But the more honest you become with yourself, the more you realize that human behavior is not purely good or bad. It is layered, reactive, and only driven by unresolved internal conflict. This understanding does not make you superior. It makes you aware. At some point, the illusion stops being exciting. You begin to see people as they are, not as you hoped they would be. And that changes your emotional reactions completely. You stop chasing potential. You start observing behavior. You stop over-explaining disrespect. You start trusting patterns more than promises. And while this can feel isolating at first, it also brings clarity. Because now you are no longer negotiating with fantasy. Clarity has a price. You may lose comfort. You may lose certain relationships. You may lose the ability to ignore what you see. But you also gain something deeper, stability within yourself. You stop being emotionally hijacked by inconsistency. You stop confusing attention with love. You stop giving access to people who only understand you in fragments. And slowly, your emotional world becomes less chaotic, even if it becomes quieter. There's a moment in life when you realize the biggest threat was never other people. It was the stories you built around them. Once those stories fall apart, you stop reacting to illusions and start responding to reality. And reality is not always comfortable. But one thing's for sure, it's always honest. You no longer ask, why did they change? You start asking, what did I choose to ignore? That question alone changes everything. Because once you see clearly, you cannot go back to blindness. And strangely enough, that is where real freedom begins. I hope these words hit you hard, because in my life, they hit me so hard, and I know it's the truth. I'm just passing it along. And if you don't understand, one day you will. Anyway, it's always love from this end. On to the next one. LanceScurv out. Much love. Peace.